If you're a beginner and you're looking for a simple sewing project that would actually help you practice your sewing skills, then you should definitely try making this reversible jacket. What I love about this project is that you're not just making one jacket because it's reversible. You can wear it on either side, which means you basically get two different looks from one piece. And don't let the fact that it looks like a proper jacket intimidate you. This is actually very simple. In this tutorial, I'll take you through the process step by step from cutting the fabric to putting together everything and finishing the jacket neatly. If you're new here, welcome to Sew with Funny, where I make sewing simple for beginners, from measurement and pattern drafting to easy sewing projects you can make yourself. So if you enjoy this tutorial, don't forget to click on the subscribe button, like, share, and comment. So for this tutorial, I am going to be using these two fabrics. Remember, I'm making a reversible jacket, so it is going to be two different fabrics working as both the main fabric and the lining. So I'm going to be using 1.5 yards of fabric each for both of them. But if you're on the bigger side, you can actually use 2 yards. So the first thing I'm going to do is to draft the pattern for the upper part of my jacket. And I'm going to be using this basic bodice here. So if you do not know how to draft a basic bodice, I have a tutorial here on how to do that. So you can actually check that out. I'll be leaving the link on the description. So on the shoulder line, I am going to be going in by 1 inch. Now the reason I'm going in by 1 inch is because this jacket is more like a pinafore kind of jacket, okay? So on the upper part, I will need to take out 1 inch for my fittings. And on the waistline, I am going to be dividing my waist measurement by 8 inches. Now, if you check, this is going to stop at half of the front and half of the back. So we're going to be dividing it by 8 to get that. And I had 3.8 right here. So I just went ahead to mark it. And then I used my ruler right here to connect whatever I had on the shoulder to the waist to form the pattern that I'll be using. Right after this, the next thing I'm going to be doing is to cut it out, okay? So I'll be cutting my pattern here, and I'll be using the front pattern to cut out the back pattern. I'm going to be making two different patterns. I'll be using one pattern to cut out both my front and my back piece. When cutting out your back piece, make sure that your fabric is on fold. So the back piece is going to have that folded edge so that when you open it up, it's going to give you that design, okay? So before doing that, I'll just go ahead and iron it down so that I would have a smooth space to cut out from. Now, if you notice, while I was cutting this, I left about 1/2 inch by the sides here so that I'll be using it to turn out my fabric. And then after cutting it out, I just went ahead to place my neck measurement. So because this is actually the back neckline, I made use of 1.5 inches for my depth, and for the width, I went ahead to use the 3 inches that we used at the beginning. And then I am just going to go ahead and cut this out as so. Then after that, I would just move ahead to cut out the front piece. So for the front, I am not going to be leaving the center on fold because the front is going to have that beautiful kind of crisscross in front. I don't know if I should call it a crisscross, but that design we have there is going to be in front, okay? And then I am going to be leaving 1/2 inch there because I'll be turning it out. I just went ahead to pin down my pattern to my fabric so that it won't be moving. And then I just went ahead to cut it out, leaving 1/2 inch all the way around, including the center front. And then I just went ahead to cut out my neck. So this is basically how it is going to look like. So I'm going to be using this particular fabric to cut out on the other fabric. So I've gone ahead right here to cut them all out, and I also went ahead to iron a stay on all the sides that I cut out. Then I also went ahead to cut out my flay. So I cut out 720-degree flay right here to be able to use it on the down part of my jacket. Now, if you do not know how to cut out this 720-degree flay, I have a tutorial on how to cut out different types of flay. I would also leave the link on the description box so you can check it out. Now on the upper part, I am going to be joining the shoulder. Right sides facing each other of the same fabric. Then for my flay, I am going to cut it all open like this, and then I'll pick them together and join them as well, okay? Placing the same sides on each other like so, okay? The same colors on each other like so. Make sure that it is actually the same. Then after that, I would shift my flay away and then concentrate on the upper part of my outfit. So I'm actually done stitching on my shoulders. I'm going to be placing my fabric like so, right here, making sure that they align. So I'm going to take it to the machine like so, and I'm going to be stitching it like this. I'm going to stitch all through like this, and then I'm going to stitch it to the end, and then on this other side I am going to stitch it as well, okay? Then I'll also go ahead and I'll stitch this point here and also stitch this point. So the only place I'm not going to stitch is going to be here, and I won't also stitch here, okay, because this is where I'm going to be pulling it out from. So I'm going to be taking it to my machine right now, and I will start stitching it. Okay guys, so I'm done stitching on all my sides. So I'll just go ahead and trim out the excesses. And then on the neckline, I am also going to trim out the excesses I have here. So you do not want to have this bulkiness when you're done stitching on your fabric and you turn it over. So what you would rather do is to just trim out the excesses and leave about 0.2 inches as your allowance. And then on the neckline, you're going to run your notches around. Now, the reason you're running the notches around is because you want your neckline to actually lie down perfectly when you turn it over, okay? So you just notch it. And when you're notching it, be very careful so that you not cut out the thread, okay? Because it's actually really tricky. Now, when I'm done, I am going to pull my fabric out as so, and I am going to be ironing this out. So after pulling this out, if you look at it, you realize that the green side is on the green and the brownish orange is also on the brown side, okay? So I'm just going to go ahead and iron this out like so. Now, ironing actually makes your work look extremely professional. Looking at this right here, there is a big difference between when I ironed it and when I did not. I'm actually done with the major part of the work, which is actually the upper part of our jacket, and it actually looks really neat, right? Now I'm going to put this aside and I will move over to working with my flay. So now you remember that we had stitched our flay right here. So I am going to be placing the green flay on the center of the orange or brownish fabric, okay, right sides facing each other like so. And then after placing this, I am going to align the beginning, okay, the parts that I did not join, I will align them together as so, the green fabric facing the brown fabric, and then I am going to place each of them like it's going to be four, right, the both of them on the opposite sides. And then when I am done, I am just going to go ahead and trim this out. Now I am going to be trimming this out based on what I want, okay, because it's going to be just round, right? So there's no measurement for it. You just trim it off in a circular form. Now after doing this, the next thing I'll do is to take it to the machine, and from this part that I trimmed up, I am going to be stitching it all through. So I'll stitch from that end to the other end of the fabric. So guys, I'm actually done stitching round on my flay right here. So you can notice how it actually looks after stitching it. So the next thing I am going to do is to pull this out right here. And then after pulling this out, I'm just going to go ahead and iron it out. Remember that ironing makes your work really professional. So in everything you do, just try as much as possible to iron out your flay. Now back to the jacket, upper part of my jacket. So we're going to have a band around the waistline, okay? So for this band, I am going to be taking out 2 inches from the upper part of my jacket. So these 2 inches I'm taking out, I am going to be replacing it with the band that I am going to be fixing on the waistline. So after this, I will just go ahead and cut it out. And for the band, I am going to be using about 3 inches wide, okay? So I took out 2 inches on the waistline, so the other 1 inches is for my stitching allowance. Now for the length of the band, I am going to be using 3 times my waist measurement, okay? So that I'll get the proper band that I'm looking for. Now on the center of the flay as so, I am going to be folding this into 2 and then I will notch the center. The reason I'm notching the center is so that I can have an equal placement of the band, okay? So on the band also, I will fold it into 2 and I will notch the center of both bands. Then I would place each band's right side facing each other. Now make sure that when you're placing it, the color of the band that you're using would face each other. So the green actually will go to the green and the brownish orange will go to the brown side, okay? That way you won't be mixing up anything. So after placing the band on each other, I am going to take it to my machine and I will just stitch it all through, okay? So I'll stitch it from the center right here and I will take it to the end of the band and I'll do the same thing on this other side right here. So I'm actually done stitching both the flay and the band together and you can see what I was talking about. So now on these parts that I had stitched, I'm going to be notching round on them. Notching actually makes your work lie down properly so you would be able to iron it. So I went ahead to notch it down and I am going to iron this out so that it will be neater than this. So look at the way our flay actually looks before I am going to iron it out. Now the green side of the band is also matching with the green side of the flay and the brown side of the band also is matching. So I'm going to just go ahead and pull it out. Then I'll just iron this out as so. Now the next thing I am going to do is on this part that I did not stitch, okay, I am going to be folding in 1/2 inch in on both sides. So the reason for this 1/2 inch on both sides is because you would be top stitching on this part and you want to top stitch on 1/2 an inch. So that is why I am going to iron 1/2 an inch all through this space right here. And of course the back too is going to be on this 1/2 an inch that I am folding inside right here. So I've gone ahead to iron 1/2 an inch on all the belt sides and every part of this band that I did not stitch. So after doing this, I am just going to fold my flay into 2 to find the midpoint, because on this midpoint is where I am going to be attaching the upper part of my jacket. So right here, I will fold it like so and I will find the midpoint. So after folding this like so, I am going to be bringing my jacket right here. I'm going to be starting with the back, okay? So I'm going to fold the back like so into 2 and I will notch the center. And then I will place this on my fabric. Now make sure that the brown side of the fabric is towards the brown side and the green is towards the green. And then I am going to top stitch like this. And also make sure that you're pushing in only half an inch, okay, from your upper part of the jacket. Now, after doing this, the next thing I am going to do is to attach the front. Now, the first one I attached was the back, so I'll be attaching the front. And to do this, I am going to open up my flea like this. Now, on the ending part of this flea, right here, I am going to bring up my front and then I would place it here, making sure that it actually starts from the beginning of this flea. Okay, make sure that it starts from this point and make sure that you're pushing in half an inch inside. So I'll do the same thing on the other side and then I'll take it to the machine and I will stitch it through. Now, after stitching this, the next thing I am going to do is to also complete the stitching of the belt, okay, because I did not stitch this part, so I'll just go ahead and stitch it. And of course, our reversible jacket is ready. So I'll just go ahead and iron this part that I have stitched right here so that it will be straight. So this jacket is actually ready and you can see how beautiful it looks. So the green side is actually facing the green and the orange side is facing the orange. I don't know what color that is, if it is orange or it is brown. Okay, so basically I am done with our jacket and you can see how pretty this looks. So between these two colors, which do you really prefer? Okay, for me, I think I love both of them because they actually stand out really well, and somehow they have a way of matching with each other. So let me know in the comment section, what is your favorite side of the jacket? And thank you for watching to the end. See you in the next tutorial. Bye.